I stand before you not just as a leader from one nation, but as a voice for the collective destiny of our continent. For too long, our people have waiting for the change, waiting for progress, waiting for leaders who truly understand the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Our continent is rich in resources, culture, and potential, yet many of our brothers and sisters still face poverty, injustice, and insecurity. This is not the Africa we dreamed of. It is not the Africa our ancestors fought for. It is time for a new chapter, one written by leaders who put the interests of their people above all else. To the leaders of Africa, I say this: it is your duty to lead with courage, vision, and integrity. The challenges we face are great, but so too is our capacity to overcome them. We must reject corruption, nepotism, and complacency. We must embrace transparency, unity, and innovation. The youth of Africa are watching. They demand accountability and hope. They deserve education, opportunity, and security. Our future depends on how we respond today. Let us break free from the chains of dependency and forge a path toward self-reliance. Let us build institutions that serve the people, not just those in power. Let us unite across borders and work together to address the threats that face us all, whether they come from within or beyond our shores. Africa belongs to Africans. It is time for us to take ownership of our destiny with pride and determination. Let this moment be remembered as the turning point when African leaders stood tall, listened to their people, and acted decisively to build a better future. Africa is a continent of immense wealth, rich not only in natural resources, but also in diverse cultures, histories, and human potential. From vast mineral deposits to fertile lands and vibrant creative expressions, Africa holds treasures that the world recognizes and envies. Yet despite this abundance, many of our brothers and sisters live in conditions marked by poverty, injustice, and insecurity. This paradox is deeply troubling and calls for urgent reflection and action. How is it possible that a land so blessed continues to grapple with hunger, inequality, and violence? The answer lies not in the continent's potential, but in the way that potential has been managed and sometimes exploited. Across many African nations, the wealth beneath the soil has often failed to translate into improved living standards for the people above it. Extractive industries frequently benefit foreign companies or a narrow elite, leaving the majority without access to basic services such as clean water, education, and healthcare. This gap between resource wealth and human development is a wound that hinders progress and fuels frustration. It is compounded by ongoing conflicts and insecurity that displace communities, destroy infrastructure, and stall economic growth. Without peace and stability, development remains out of reach. The challenge of poverty is not only economic, but also social and political. Inequality persists in many forms, whether between urban and rural areas, between different ethnic groups, or between men and women. Social injustice manifests in limited access to opportunities and rights, which undermines the dignity and aspirations of millions. Insecurity, both from armed conflicts and everyday crime, creates an environment of fear that prevents communities from thriving. These issues are interconnected and require comprehensive solutions that go beyond quick fixes or surface-level reforms. This reality is a call to all Africans, and particularly to those entrusted with leadership, to acknowledge the urgent need to change course. The resources and potential of this continent must serve the people first and foremost. It is not enough to celebrate Africa's riches on paper or in statistics. We must translate those riches into tangible improvements in the lives of ordinary citizens. Access to quality education, healthcare, and economic opportunities must become the norm, not the exception. Governments must prioritize policies that address inequality and foster inclusive growth. Furthermore, the fight against poverty and insecurity demands strong institutions that are transparent, accountable, and responsive. Corruption and mismanagement often divert resources away from those who need them most, deepening the divide between wealth and poverty. When institutions fail to deliver justice or provide security, trust erodes and tensions rise. Building effective governance structures is essential to create an environment where development can flourish. The youth, who make up a significant portion of Africa's population, are at the center of this challenge. They embody the continent's potential, but also bear the brunt of its current difficulties. High unemployment rates, limited access to education, and insecurity threaten to derail their hopes and dreams. Yet, if empowered and supported, young people can become powerful agents of change. Investing in their skills, creativity, and leadership is vital for Africa's future. Insecurity, whether from internal conflicts, terrorism, or social unrest, remains a barrier to progress. It disrupts daily life and economic activity, and often results from unresolved grievances and weak state presence. Addressing insecurity requires not only military or police solutions, but also efforts to promote dialogue, reconciliation, and development. A secure environment is foundational to achieving sustainable growth and peace. In summary, Africa's wealth and cultural richness present a foundation upon which a brighter future can be built. However, the persistent challenges of poverty, injustice, and insecurity highlight the gap between potential and reality. Overcoming these obstacles requires committed leadership, strong institutions, inclusive policies, and the active involvement of all citizens, especially the youth. Only by harnessing its full potential can Africa ensure that its resources truly benefit its people, creating a continent where prosperity, justice, and peace are realities for all. African leaders stand at a pivotal moment in history, bearing the immense responsibility to shape the future of the continent. The call for responsible leadership has never been more urgent. Our people are watching closely, yearning for leaders who possess not only the courage to make difficult decisions, but also the vision to imagine a better Africa and the integrity to place the interests of their citizens above personal or political gain. Leadership that is bold, transparent, and accountable is essential if we are to unlock the full potential of our nations and bring about lasting change. Courage in leadership means confronting the many challenges that face Africa head-on, without fear or hesitation. It requires a willingness to tackle entrenched problems such as corruption, inequality, and poor governance, even when such actions may threaten established power structures or vested interests. Too often, leaders have chosen comfort and self-preservation over the difficult path of reform, resulting in stagnation and frustration among the populace. True leadership demands the bravery to break from the status quo and to champion policies that promote fairness, development, and inclusion, even when those policies are unpopular with certain groups. Vision is equally critical. Leaders must have a clear and ambitious plan for their countries and for Africa as a whole, one that goes beyond short-term gains or election cycles. This vision should embrace innovation, education, sustainable development, and regional cooperation. It should recognize the diversity of the continent's peoples and economies and seek to harness this diversity as a strength rather than a source of division. A visionary leader understands that the future of Africa depends on investments in human capital, infrastructure, and technology, and that these investments require patience, planning, and perseverance. Integrity forms the foundation upon which courageous and visionary leadership rests. Without honesty, transparency, and accountability, trust between leaders and the people erodes, undermining efforts to govern effectively. Corruption, favoritism, and abuse of power have too often plagued African governments, siphoning resources away from essential services and breeding cynicism among citizens. Leaders who lead with integrity inspire confidence and mobilize collective action. They demonstrate that public office is a sacred trust, one that must be used to serve the common good rather than private interests. Putting the people's interests first is the hallmark of responsible leadership. This means prioritizing policies that improve the quality of life for all citizens, particularly the most vulnerable and marginalized. It means listening to the voices of ordinary people and engaging them in decision-making processes, fostering inclusive governance where every person feels represented and valued. Responsible leaders recognize that their legitimacy comes from the people, and they govern accordingly, with empathy, humility, and a genuine commitment to justice. Moreover, responsible leadership requires a focus on long-term stability and peace. Leaders must work tirelessly to resolve conflicts, promote social cohesion, and build institutions that uphold the rule of law. This involves engaging with all sectors of society, civil society organizations, the private sector, and international partners, to create a collaborative approach to development and security. The challenges we face are complex and interconnected, and no single leader or government can overcome them alone. Leadership must also be adaptive and open to learning. The world is changing rapidly, and African leaders must be willing to embrace new ideas, technologies, and approaches. They must be responsive to feedback and willing to correct course when necessary. This humility and openness foster a culture of continuous improvement and innovation, enabling countries to better meet the evolving needs of their populations. Ultimately, the future of Africa depends on leaders who understand that their role is not just to govern, but to inspire and empower. They must be role models who lead by example, demonstrating the values of service, sacrifice, and dedication. When leaders place the welfare of their people above all else, they create an environment where citizens can thrive, economies can grow, and societies can become more just and equitable. In this critical moment, African leaders have the opportunity to transform the continent by leading with courage, vision, and integrity, and by always putting the people's interests first. They can build a legacy of progress and hope for generations to come. The time for responsible leadership is now, and the future of Africa depends on it. Corruption and complacency have long been barriers to Africa's progress, draining resources, undermining institutions, and eroding public trust in leadership. For the continent to move forward and fulfill its vast potential, leaders must decisively reject these destructive practices. This rejection is not merely a moral imperative, but a practical necessity to build stronger, more resilient nations. Leaders must commit themselves to fighting corruption in all its forms, embracing transparency, fostering unity, and encouraging innovation as the pillars of good governance and sustainable development. Corruption steals from the people. It diverts funds meant for schools, hospitals, roads, and social services into private pockets or wasteful expenditures. It weakens economies by discouraging investment and distorts decision-making by placing personal gain above the common good. When corruption goes unchecked, it creates a culture of impunity where laws are ignored or manipulated by those in power, while ordinary citizens suffer the consequences. Leaders who tolerate or engage in corruption betray the trust placed in them and deny their citizens the chance to live dignified lives. Therefore, the fight against corruption must be relentless, supported by strong institutions and clear legal frameworks that hold perpetrators accountable, regardless of their status. Closely linked to corruption is complacency, an attitude of accepting the status quo without striving for improvement or reform. Complacency in leadership leads to stagnation and missed opportunities. When leaders become comfortable with their positions or shielded by entrenched systems, they lose the drive to address pressing challenges or to innovate. This lethargy can stall progress in critical areas such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and economic diversification. Leaders must reject complacency by embracing a mindset of continuous improvement and urgency. They need to recognize that the world is changing rapidly, and Africa cannot afford to fall behind. Transparency is a powerful antidote to corruption and complacency. When governments operate openly, sharing information about budgets, decisions, and policies, they invite public scrutiny and participation. This openness builds trust between leaders and citizens, creating a partnership where the people can hold their leaders accountable. Transparency also encourages better decision-making by exposing inefficiencies and fostering dialogue. By implementing transparent systems, including open procurement processes, clear reporting mechanisms, and accessible public records, leaders create an environment where corruption is harder to hide and easier to confront. Unity among African nations and within societies is another crucial factor. Corruption and complacency often thrive in divided societies where suspicion, tribalism, or political rivalry distract from collective goals. Leaders must work to heal divisions and foster a sense of shared purpose. When citizens and governments unite behind common objectives, such as poverty reduction, infrastructure development, or regional integration, they pool resources, knowledge, and strengths, making progress more achievable. Unity also enhances political stability, which is essential for attracting investment and fostering innovation. Innovation is key to overcoming the challenges that corruption and complacency perpetuate. Leaders should encourage new ideas, technologies, and approaches to governance and development. This might involve digital tools to increase transparency, data-driven policies to improve service delivery, or new partnerships that bring fresh perspectives. Innovation can also empower citizens, giving them platforms to report corruption, participate in governance, and contribute solutions. By fostering a culture that values creativity and problem-solving, leaders set the stage for dynamic growth and resilience. Importantly, rejecting corruption and complacency requires leaders to lead by example. Integrity at the top inspires confidence throughout society. When leaders demonstrate ethical behavior, enforce laws fairly, and engage constructively with citizens and opposition groups, they set a tone that permeates all levels of government and society. This leadership style encourages others to act responsibly and discourages corruption from taking root. Civil society, media, and the private sector also play vital roles in this fight. Leaders should collaborate with these groups to strengthen oversight, advocate for reforms, and create spaces for citizen engagement. Independent institutions, such as anti-corruption agencies and judiciaries, must be empowered and protected to operate without political interference. This collective effort ensures that anti-corruption measures are not just symbolic but effective and sustainable. In summary, Africa's leaders face the urgent task of rejecting corruption and complacency to pave the way for a brighter future. By fighting corruption vigorously, embracing transparency, promoting unity, and encouraging innovation, leaders can restore trust, unlock resources, and accelerate development. This commitment demands courage, dedication, and vision, but it is essential to transforming Africa's challenges into opportunities. Only through such determined and ethical leadership can the continent achieve inclusive growth, social justice, and lasting peace for all its people. The youth of Africa represent both the continent's greatest asset and its most urgent challenge. With a rapidly growing population, young people make up a significant majority of Africa's demographic landscape, and their energy, creativity, and ambition have the power to drive transformative change. Yet, for too long, many young Africans have been marginalized, denied meaningful opportunities, and excluded from decision-making processes. The call for youth engagement and empowerment is not just a call for inclusion, it is a demand for accountability from leaders and societies to provide education, opportunity, and security, fundamental pillars for building a better future. Young people across Africa are increasingly aware of their rights and their role in shaping the continent's destiny. They demand transparency and honesty from those in power, rejecting corruption and empty promises. This demand for accountability reflects a deep desire for governments to be responsive to their needs and to govern with fairness and integrity. The youth understand that their futures depend on effective policies that prioritize their development and work-beaking. When leaders fail to listen or act, frustration grows, sometimes manifesting in protests, social unrest, or migration in search of better prospects elsewhere. It is imperative that governments recognize that ignoring young voices is both a moral failure and a threat to long-term stability. Education is a cornerstone of youth empowerment. Quality education equips young people with the knowledge, skills, and confidence needed to participate fully in society and the economy. However, access to education remains uneven across Africa, with many young people facing barriers such as poverty, gender inequality, inadequate infrastructure, and insufficient funding. Beyond access, the content and relevance of education must be addressed. Curriculums need to adapt to the realities of the 21st century, focusing on critical thinking, digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and vocational training. By investing in education systems that are inclusive and forward-looking, African countries can prepare their youth not only for jobs, but for leadership and innovation. Opportunity extends beyond education to encompass employment, entrepreneurship, and participation in civic life. High youth unemployment rates across the continent are a significant concern, leading to wasted potential and social tensions. Creating jobs requires bold economic policies that stimulate growth, support small and medium-sized enterprises, and foster sectors such as technology, agriculture, and renewable energy. Additionally, entrepreneurship should be encouraged by providing access to capital, mentorship, and markets, enabling young people to create their own opportunities. Inclusion in governance is also critical. Young Africans must have spaces to contribute ideas, influence policies, and hold leaders accountable. Youth councils, parliaments, and civil society organizations can serve as platforms for meaningful engagement. Security is another essential element of youth empowerment. Many young people live in environments marked by violence, conflict, or crime, which not only threatens their physical safety but also limits their opportunities for growth. Addressing these security concerns requires comprehensive strategies that tackle root causes such as poverty, exclusion, and injustice. Governments must prioritize peace-building, social cohesion, and effective law enforcement that respects human rights. When young people feel safe and supported, they are better able to pursue education, work, and civic participation without fear. Empowering youth also means recognizing their diversity. Africa's young people come from different regions, ethnicities, genders, and socioeconomic backgrounds, each with unique experiences and challenges. Policies must be inclusive, ensuring that marginalized groups, including young women and rural youth, have equal access to education, jobs, and leadership opportunities. Empowerment is about creating an enabling environment where all young people can realize their full potential. Technology and digital connectivity present exciting opportunities for youth empowerment. The internet and mobile technologies enable access to information, education, and markets like never before. Young Africans are already harnessing these tools to innovate, communicate, and advocate for change. Governments should invest in expanding digital infrastructure, promoting digital literacy, and supporting tech-driven entrepreneurship. This not only creates new economic opportunities, but also strengthens democratic participation and social inclusion. Ultimately, youth engagement and empowerment require a shift in mindset among leaders and societies. Young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are the leaders of today. Their energy, ideas, and resilience are invaluable assets that must be nurtured and supported. By listening to their voices, addressing their needs, and creating pathways for their success, Africa can build a future that is inclusive, prosperous, and just. The responsibility lies with governments, communities, and all stakeholders to ensure that youth are not left behind. Investing in education, opportunity, and security for young people is investing in the future of the continent itself. When youth are empowered, Africa's progress accelerates, and the dream of a vibrant, equitable, and peaceful continent becomes attainable. This is the promise that must guide every policy, every decision, and every effort to build a better Africa for all. Africa stands at a crossroads where the path to sustainable development and lasting peace depends on its ability to embrace self-reliance and foster regional unity. For too long, many African nations have been dependent on external aid, foreign investments, and international actors to address their challenges. While international cooperation can be valuable, over-reliance on outside support has often limited the continent's ability to chart its own course and fully harness its vast resources and talents. Breaking this dependency is essential if Africa is to build strong institutions, promote economic growth, and unite across borders to effectively tackle shared threats. Self-reliance means more than just economic independence. It is a mindset and strategy that empowers countries to use their own resources, knowledge, and capacities to solve problems. Africa's natural wealth, from minerals and oil to arable land and human capital, is immense. Yet this wealth has not always translated into prosperity because of structural weaknesses, poor governance, and external exploitation. By focusing on developing local industries, investing in education and technology, and supporting entrepreneurship, African countries can create resilient economies that are less vulnerable to global shocks. Self-reliance also encourages the continent to prioritize its own development agendas rather than depending on foreign donors whose priorities may not always align with local needs. Building strong institutions is central to achieving self-reliance. Institutions are the frameworks within which societies operate. They include governments, legal systems, financial bodies, and civil organizations. When institutions function effectively, they promote stability, uphold the rule of law, protect rights, and deliver essential services. Weak or corrupt institutions undermine development and breed instability. Therefore, African nations must invest in strengthening these structures through reforms that promote transparency, accountability, and efficiency. Strong institutions also foster confidence among citizens and investors, creating an environment conducive to sustainable growth and social cohesion. Equally important is the need for regional unity. Africa's challenges are often cross-center in nature. Conflicts, terrorism, pandemics, climate change, and economic disruptions do not respect national boundaries. Fragmented responses and isolated national efforts are insufficient to address these complex issues. Regional cooperation and integration offer a powerful way to pool resources, share expertise, and coordinate policies. Through regional bodies such as the African Union and regional economic communities, countries can work together to promote peace, security, trade, and infrastructure development. Unity amplifies Africa's voice on the global stage and strengthens its negotiating power in international affairs. Trade is a critical area where regional unity can translate into tangible benefits. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFC-CFT, represents a bold step toward creating a single market for goods and services, encouraging investment, and fostering industrialization. By reducing trade barriers and harmonizing regulations, African countries can stimulate intracontinental commerce and reduce dependence on external markets. This increased economic integration boosts competitiveness, creates jobs, and encourages innovation. It also helps to diversify economies, making them more resilient to global economic fluctuations. Addressing common threats requires a shared commitment to peace and security. Conflicts in one country can quickly destabilize entire regions, causing displacement, economic disruption, and humanitarian crises. Joint security initiatives, intelligence sharing, and peacekeeping efforts are vital to prevent and resolve conflicts. Moreover, cooperation in tackling terrorism and organized crime enhances the safety and stability necessary for development. These efforts are more effective when countries trust each other and coordinate their actions through regional mechanisms. Climate change and environmental degradation are additional challenges that demand collective action. Africa is particularly vulnerable to climate impacts which threaten agriculture, water supplies, and livelihoods. Regional strategies for environmental protection, sustainable resource management, and disaster response can mitigate these risks. By working together, countries can share technology, best practices, and mobilize resources more efficiently. The journey toward self-reliance and regional unity requires visionary leadership and the active participation of all Africans. Leaders must prioritize policies that strengthen domestic capabilities, reduce aid dependency, and build cooperative regional frameworks. Citizens, civil society, and the private sector also have roles in holding governments accountable, promoting transparency, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Ultimately, self-reliance and regional unity are not opposing ideas, but complementary forces that together can propel Africa toward a future of prosperity, peace, and dignity. By breaking free from dependency, building strong institutions, and uniting across borders, Africa can address its common threats with resilience and confidence. This collective approach honors the continent's rich heritage and fulfills the aspirations of its people for a thriving and sovereign Africa. Africa's future belongs to Africans, and it is essential that the people of this continent take full ownership of their destiny. For too long, external forces have influenced the political, economic, and social trajectories of African countries, often shaping policies and decisions without fully considering the aspirations and needs of the people themselves. It is time for a new era, one where Africans take pride in their identity, embrace their responsibilities, and actively participate in shaping the future they want to see. This sense of ownership is the foundation for decisive action and meaningful progress across the continent. Taking ownership of Africa's destiny begins with recognizing the immense potential that lies within the continent and its people. Africa is rich in culture, natural resources, and human talent. These are assets that Africans themselves understand best and are best positioned to manage. When Africans lead the way in determining their political priorities, economic development strategies, and social policies, they can ensure these efforts are tailored to their unique contexts and values. This approach fosters solutions that are sustainable, inclusive, and rooted in the lived realities of communities. Ownership also means moving beyond a mindset of dependency and victimhood. While acknowledging past injustices such as colonialism and external exploitation is important, it must not prevent Africans from asserting their agency. Every generation has the power to learn from history and build a future that reflects their hopes rather than their grievances. Taking pride in this agency instills confidence and determination, which are crucial for overcoming obstacles and seizing opportunities. When Africans see themselves as active creators of their future, they become motivated to engage in governance, economic activities, and social innovation. This shift in mindset must be matched by concrete actions. It is not enough to talk about Africa's potential. Africans must take the lead in translating that potential into progress. This involves holding leaders accountable, demanding transparency, and participating in democratic processes. Citizens must exercise their rights to vote, speak out, and organize around causes that matter to them. Civil society organizations and grassroots movements play a vital role in amplifying the voices of ordinary people and pushing for reforms. By taking ownership of political participation, Africans ensure that governance reflects their priorities and serves their interests. Economic empowerment is another critical aspect of owning Africa's destiny. Africans must prioritize the development of their own economies through supporting local businesses, encouraging innovation, and investing in skills and infrastructure. Economic independence reduces vulnerability to external shocks and manipulations and fosters self-confidence. When people see the benefits of their labor and entrepreneurship, they take pride in their contributions and become stakeholders in the continent's success. This ownership also involves addressing inequalities and ensuring that economic growth benefits all segments of society, including marginalized groups. Education and culture are key pillars in fostering a sense of ownership. Education systems that teach African history, languages, and values help young people develop pride in their identity and understand their role in shaping the future. Cultural expression through arts, music, literature, and traditions reinforces community bonds and nurtures a shared vision for progress. When Africans celebrate their heritage while embracing modernity and innovation, they build a confident, dynamic society ready to lead on the global stage. Taking ownership of Africa's destiny also calls for regional solidarity and cooperation. While individual countries must act decisively, they do not exist in isolation. African unity strengthens the continent's position and enables collective action on shared challenges. By working together, African nations can pool resources, coordinate policies, and support each other's development. This spirit of cooperation enhances resilience and maximizes impact, making ownership not just a national but a continental endeavor. This moment in history offers a unique opportunity for Africans to make a decisive break from past limitations and take control of their future. The world is changing rapidly, and Africa's youthful population, growing economies, and emerging technologies create a fertile ground for transformation. Seizing this moment requires bold leadership and active citizenry committed to progress. It requires embracing innovation, reforming institutions, and fostering inclusive growth. Above all, ownership means hope, hope grounded in action and responsibility. When Africans take pride in their ability to shape their destiny, they inspire each other and future generations. This pride fuels perseverance through challenges and sustains momentum toward a more just, prosperous, and peaceful continent. In conclusion, Africa's destiny is not predetermined by external forces or historical circumstances. It is shaped by the choices and actions of Africans themselves. By embracing ownership with pride and determination, the continent can make this a turning point, a moment when decisive action leads to real progress. This is the path to realizing the dreams of millions and fulfilling Africa's promise as a continent of opportunity, dignity, and unity.